Some B-movies leave scars, not just on film reels, but on people who made them. These weren't just bad movies, they were career killers. Behind the rubber monsters and cardboard sets were real actors hoping for a break. Let's talk about the weird, the wild, and the downright unfair wreckage these cult flicks left behind. Starting with The Beast of Yucca Flats, 1961. Could $300 cost you your future? For Tor Johnson, it kinda did. He took the lead in The Beast of Yucca Flats, a movie about a Soviet scientist turned nuclear mutant wandering the desert. The story was barely there. Most of the narration was added after filming, and Tor had no real dialogue. By the way, if you're enjoying this nostalgic madness, don't forget to subscribe. At 1,000 subscribers, we got something very cool planned just for you. Alright, so the editing in The Beast of Yucca Flats was a mess, and the monster makeup looked slapped on. Critics and audiences mocked the film. Tor had once been a famous wrestler, and he hoped that the film would give him serious roles. Instead, it became a joke that haunted him. After this, he only got small parts, in cheap productions or comedy bits where he played the big scary guy. His health declined, and he died in 1971, mostly forgotten by Hollywood. A movie that should have lifted him up ended up leaving him stranded, just like his character in the desert. Plan 9 from Outer Space, 1957. Imagine creating a look so iconic it defines a genre, then losing everything. That was Malia Nurmi's reality. Known as Vampira, she was a horror TV legend. When ABC demanded the rights to her character, she refused, and that ended her TV career overnight. Then came Plan 9 from Outer Space, Ed Wood's infamous alien invasion movie. She played a silent corpse bride, haunting the screen in a graveyard fog. But the film was sloppy, with flying saucers on strings and dialogue that made no sense. Her small part was overshadowed by the movie's failure. Typecast and blacklisted, she drifted into poverty, doing odd jobs just to survive. Her talent and style weren't truly appreciated until decades later, long after the damage was done. Vampira deserved a crown. Instead, she got a cult label and a life full of regret. Bride of the Monster, 1955. By the time he filmed Bride of the Monster, Bela Lugosi was already in pain, literally. Once beloved as Dracula, Lugosi was struggling with addiction and health issues. In this film, he played a mad scientist trying to create atomic superhumans, all while wrestling a fake octopus in a swamp. The movie's tiny budget didn't help. Scenes were awkward, the effects were laughable, and Lugosi's condition was clear on screen. He stumbled through lines, his movements stiff, but still gave it his all. It was his last speaking role. After filming, he entered rehab. 2 years later, he died broke and nearly forgotten by studios that once praised him. Bride of the Monster wasn't the worst movie ever made, but it marked the end of a legend who deserved far more than a rubber tentacle and a sad farewell. Manos, The Hands of Fate, 1966. You've heard of So Bad It's Good, but this one was just sad. Manos, The Hands of Fate follows a family who stumbled into a desert cult led by a strange man called the Master. John Reynolds played Torgo, the limping, bug-eyed servant with a creepy presence. His performance was disturbing, but for real reasons. Reynolds was reportedly dealing with mental illness, and the leg brace he wore to create Torgo's walk caused him real pain. Tragically, he died by suicide before the film's release. And as for the other cast, at the premiere, young actress Jackie Neyman burst into tears when she heard someone had dubbed over her voice without telling her. The movie went on and became a cult joke, but for the people in it, especially Reynolds, it left behind scars that no punchline could heal. Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, 1958. Sometimes the posters outshines the performer. Allison Hayes stars in The Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, playing Nancy Archer, a rich, frustrated woman who grows to enormous size after an alien encounter. She storms through her cheating husband's world, crushing cars and grabbing buildings and bedsheets. The image became iconic, but behind the scenes, Hayes suffered. Typecast in B movies, and she couldn't land a serious role. Worse, a contaminated calcium supplement left her with severe health issues that doctors ignored for years. She lived with pain, became an activist for patient rights, and struggled to stay afloat in Hollywood. She died at just 47. While the movie became legendary, Hayes became a tragic reminder of how quickly the industry can chew you up, even if your face is 50 foot tall on a billboard. The Brain from Planet Arus, 1957. Something about glowing alien brains sounds silly, and meh, doesn't it? Well, it's because obviously they were. It was John Agar who starred in The Brain from Planet Arus as a scientist possessed by a brain named Gore, who floats around and tries to take over the world. The movie had over-the-top acting, cheap effects, and a villain that looked like a Halloween prop. Agar, once seen as a future Hollywood star and Shirley Temple's ex-husband, hoped this role might revive his career. Instead, it pushed it further downhill. Critics laughed. Audiences laughed. His wide-eye, intense expressions became a meme decades before memes existed. While all these were going on, his personal life fell apart. Alcohol problems, arrest, and few serious offers. The movie became a cult favorite, but for Agar, it marked the moment Hollywood stopped taking him seriously. A floating brain wrecked his career more than any real scandal could. Glenn or Glenda, 1953. Sometimes your first big role is also your last. Dolores Fuller played the supportive girlfriend in Ed Wood's Glenn or Glenda, a strange film about gender identity, self-expression, and personal truth, told in the weirdest way possible. Ed Wood starred in it himself and filled it with jumbled dream sequences and lectures from Bela Lugosi. You gotta admit, the story was bold for its time, but nobody knew what to make of it. Dolores thought that she was part of Ed's future projects, but he replaced her without a word. She was crushed and quietly left acting. Years later, she found her second act as a songwriter for Elvis Presley. She helped write hits and finally got the respect she deserved, but Hollywood never gave her a second shot. One surreal film ended one career and helped start another. Robot Monster, 1953. How about a monster in a gorilla suit with a space helmet? That's Ro-Man, the villain of Robot Monster, and George Nader had to play it all seriously. He was the human lead fighting Ro-Man, an alien who wipes out almost all of humanity, but still talks about love and logic while blowing bubbles. Bet you can't imagine that without laughing, huh? Yeah, the movie was famously bad, but Nader gave it everything. He hoped the exposure would lead to bigger roles in science fiction. Instead, he became stuck in B-movie territory. Directors didn't want him for dramas or action flicks anymore. Though he kept working, the Roman Guy title followed him for the rest of his career. It did become a cult hit, but it also became a wall that he couldn't climb over. Catwomen of the Moon, 1950. When you wear the wrong costume in the wrong movie, a cruel fate comes into play. Ask Suzanne Alexander. In Catwomen of the Moon, she played one of the mysterious telepathic moon women who met a group of astronauts and planned Earth's takeover. The cat suits, dance scenes, and all-female alien society were more laughable than exciting. Suzanne thought it was a chance to show off her screen presence, but it backfired. After this role, she got stuck playing alien seductress and background beauties. She tried to branch out, but Hollywood didn't budge. By the end of the 50s, she left acting altogether. Zombies of Moratau, 1957. Underwater zombies? Cool idea. Slow movie? Career killer. Paul Birch starred in Zombies of Moratau, where divers searching for treasure run into the undead crew of a sunken ship. Birch gave a grounded, serious performance, but it didn't matter. The film was slow and didn't live up to his creepy premise. The audiences yawned and critics shrugged, and Birch, once in line for better, bigger genre roles, found himself edged out of horror and sci-fi. After this, he mostly popped up in small TV parts and the occasional commercial. He never headlined a genre film again. For an actor with real talent, Moratau was more than a flop. It was a closed door that never reopened. The Unearthly, 1957. What happens when you're too good at playing creepy? You get stuck doing only that. John Carradine, a legendary actor with a deep voice and serious talent, starred in The Unearthly as a mad doctor running twisted experiments in a secret clinic. So the movie was about failed attempts to create eternal youth, with patients turning into weird broken creatures. It was low budget, strange, and filled with stilted dialogue. Carradine had done horror before, but this movie locked him into that box for good. After The Unearthly, most casting directors only saw him as that horror guy. Despite his long resume, big dramatic parts stopped coming. He kept acting for money, taking whatever roles he could, even if they were bad. He worked right up until the end of his life, but the serious respect he once had in Hollywood faded. A career that should have aged like fine wine instead got bottled in a dusty, forgotten shelf. The Creeping Terror, 1964. Vic Savage found out how a bad movie can be before it ruins everything the hard way. He produced and starred in The Creeping Terror, a movie about a slow-moving alien blob that looks like a dirty carpet. It absorbs people while creeping across a small town. The monster was laughable. The sound was dubbed badly afterward, and the whole film felt unfinished. Savage poured his savings into the project, hoping it would be his big break. Instead, it wrecked his career. Nobody wanted to work with him after that. Investors backed out of future deals, and he never got another film off the ground. His reputation never recovered. For Vic Savage, this wasn't just a bad movie, it was the end of the road. Night of the Ghouls, 1959. Now here's an early 60s movies that didn't even get released on time. Night of the Ghouls. Playing as a fake psychic who accidentally wakes up real ghosts while pretending to talk to the dead, it was Duke Moore in costume. The movie was made by Ed Wood and was supposed to be creepy, but it was weird and clunky instead. What made things worse was that the movie didn't come out until decades later. Moore wasn't paid, he wasn't credited properly, and by the time anyone saw the film, his acting days were already behind him. After Ghouls, he was basically done in Hollywood. He only got a few tiny roles after that. It's one thing for a movie to bomb, but for it to vanish before anyone can even see it? That's the kind of failure that takes your career down before it even has a chance to fight back. The Killer Shrews, 1959. Would you take a horror role if the monster were just a dog in a rug? James Best did. In The Killer Shrews, he played a man trapped on an island where giant mutant shrews attacked the people living there. The problem? The shrews were clearly just dogs wearing costumes. Audiences laughed, not screamed. Best had been trying to break into film in a serious way. But after this, people didn't take him seriously. Even though he later found success on TV, most notably as Sheriff Roscoe in The Dukes of Hazzard, his movie career stayed stuck in B-movie land. Critics never forgot the shrews, and neither did he. Every interview, every mention of his early work, the dogs and rugs came back to haunt him. It was a joke that stuck for life. Attack of the Giant Leeches, 1959. Swamps, rubber suits, and fake blood. What could go wrong? Sure enough, if others can do it, why can't we? It must have been the insurance for the producer Gene Corman and director Bernard L. Kowalski while making the Attack of the Giant Leeches movie. But for Ken Curtis, it was a big mistake. He played a supporting role in a movie about mutant leeches that dragged victims into the water to suck their blood. The creatures were clearly men in suits, and the swamp sets looked like a kid's science fair project. The film was meant to be scary, but it ended up looking ridiculous. Curtis, embarrassed by the whole thing, refused to talk about the movie afterward. He never mentioned it in interviews. Luckily, he had TV work to fall back on, but this time in films took a big hit. The leeches didn't just pull down their victims, they pulled down his film reputation with them. For years, it was a role he tried to pretend didn't exist. The Wild Women of Wongo, 1958. Some movies are bad. This one was embarrassing. Richard Travis starred in The Wild Women of Wongo, where muscular men and wild women met on a jungle island and go through ridiculous rituals. The plot made no sense, and the costumes were straight out of a beach party. Travis, who had been in decent films, thought this would be lighthearted fun. Instead, it became one of the most mocked B-movies ever made. After this, Travis found it hard to get meaningful roles. Casting directors saw him as someone who made bad choices. He left Hollywood not long after, saying there were no serious offers anymore. One goofy role in a film full of half-naked dancing shut the door on a career that could have gone much farther. From Hell It Came, 1957. Upstaged by a walking tree stump. That's what happened in 50s From Hell It Came, a bizarre revenge tale about a South Pacific prince who came back from the dead as a killer tree monster called the Tabanga. It sounds like a joke, but the filmmakers played it straight. The Tabanga suit looked like it was carved from a soggy log, and it moved just about as fast. Actor Todd Andrews, who led the cast as a scientist trying to stop the monster, gave a committed performance, but it didn't matter. Nobody could take the movie seriously. Critics roasted it, and audiences laughed in all the wrong places. For Andrews, who had hoped to pivot into leading man roles, this film clipped his chances. The shadow of Tabanga followed him, and Hollywood stopped offering serious scripts. Earth vs. the Spider, 1958. For Gene Person, in Earth vs. the Spider was a nightmare he couldn't wake up from. Well, because he starred in it as a teenager who accidentally wakes up a giant tarantula that wreaks havoc on a small town. The special effects were cheap, and the spider clearly looked fake, but the movie tried to play it straight. Person, fresh-faced and eager, gave a solid performance, but nobody noticed. The film was mocked for its shaky sets and recycled monster shots. Critics focused on the bad visuals, not the acting. Person faded from film and mostly disappeared from the screen following this. The She Creature, 1956. Here's another actor with a role so strange it scared off serious work. Meet Tom Conway in The She Creature. He played a mysterious hypnotist who uses a woman's past life to summon a sea monster that kills people. The monster costume was rubbery and awkward, but the plot took itself seriously. Too seriously. Conway, once a respected actor known for detective roles and suave characters, thought that this might be a fun challenge. But after The She Creature, studios didn't call him for smart and dramatic parts anymore. Instead, he got stuck in low-grade horror. His name, once associated with elegance, became linked to campy thrillers. He kept working, but only in cheap movies. It wasn't the monster that ruined his reputation, it was the fact that he took it seriously while everyone else laughed. It Conquered the World, 1956. Seen an alien that looks like a grumpy cucumber? Peter Graves has. In It Conquered the World, he played a scientist who teams up with a Venusian brain creature that wants to enslave Earth. The message was about control and freedom, but all anyone remembered was the alien, a lumpy, stiff puppet with sharp teeth and flappy arms. Graves had built a strong career, and this role should have added to it, but the movie's silliness dragged him down. Audiences laughed at the monster, not the message. Casting directors saw him as a guy who couldn't pick smart roles. Though Graves later bounced back with Mission Impossible, it took years to shake off the cucumber alien image. For a while, it looked like one rubbery monster had conquered his career. Gladly, he bounced back with grace. The Day the World Ended, 1955. A hero in a nuclear wasteland sounds like a great role, unless the movie flops. In The Day the World Ended, George Nader took the lead, a story about a handful of people trying to survive after an atomic disaster. There's a mutant monster, a love triangle, and a lot of dust. The film was slow and awkward, with long scenes that went nowhere. Nader did his best, but the script gave him little to work with. Reviews weren't kind, and his performance was called dulled by some critics. After that, the big studios stopped calling. He moved to smaller roles and mostly B-movies. Instead of launching his career, the film marked the start of his slide into darkness. The Monster That Challenged the World, 1957. You can survive giant mollusks, but not bad reviews. Tim Hope played in The Monster That Challenged the World, where prehistoric sea creatures start eating people along the California coast. The monster design was bulky and strange, and though the story tried for suspense, it didn't deliver. Holt, once a popular cowboy actor, tried to shift into sci-fi, but this role didn't help. The film did okay in drive-ins, but critics mocked the clumsy effects and flat pacing. Holt faded from the spotlight not long after. He stopped making movies and retired early. Though he gave the monster movie a solid try, the audience wasn't buying it. The creatures weren't the only thing sinking either. His career went down with them. The Incredible Petrified World, 1958. Sometimes it's not the monsters that ruin your career, it's the script. Dale Bertie had a strong presence and talent to spare, but when he signed onto The Incredible Petrified World, none of that mattered. The movie's idea wasn't actually bad. A group of explorers dive deep into the ocean and discover a strange underground world. But the execution? Slow, awkward, and painfully low budget. The petrified world looked like a cave set built in someone's garage, and the action dragged like molasses. Bertie gave a steady performance, but critics and audiences didn't care. The movie flopped, and with it, so did Bertie's shot at bigger roles. After this, he slipped into the world of one-off TV episodes and background parts. He kept acting, but his film career never took off again. One dull trip underground ended up burying his chances at the top. And for the last one on our list, the Astro Zombies, 1968. If the Beast of Yucca Flats wounded Tor Johnson's career, the Astro Zombies buried it. Yep, the same guy from the movie we saw first in the video. Famous for his intimidating size and silent frowns, Johnson had already been reduced to background grunts and rubber suit roles after Yucca Flats. a movie so confusing narration had to be added just to explain the plot. By 1968, he was cast once again as a mindless brute, this time in The Astro Zombies, a film packed with solar-powered zombies, spies, mad science, and chaos. The movie didn't just miss the mark, it never knew where to aim. Johnson was slathered in makeup, stumbling through scenes with no clear purpose. It wasn't acting anymore, it was spectacle, and it was the final act in a career defined more by novelty than nuance. The darkness that started in Yucca Flats only grew heavier. After The Astro Zombies, Tor Johnson faded from the screen entirely. He died a few years later, remembered not for what he could have been, but for what Hollywood reduced him to. A silent giant trapped in B-movie purgatory. Were these films cursed, or were the actors just collateral damage in Hollywood's strangest era? Drop your thoughts down below. Like and share if you love bizarre movie history, and if you think that this was crazy, check out our previous video on 25 banned sci-fi B-movies from the 50s. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what's next.